Hello and welcome to Your Access Point to Washington. I'm Aisha Tanzim. Pakistan and India decided to de-escalate tensions on the line of control, a good omen for the two nuclear-armed neighbors. And we have a great panel to discuss here what this means not only for now, but also for the future relationship of the two countries. From Pakistan, joining us on the phone is Ambassador Tariq Fatmi, Pakistan's former ambassador, but also a foreign policy expert and a political analyst. And from here in Washington, we have Daniel Marquis of Council on Foreign Relations. He's a senior fellow on South Asia, Pakistan, and India. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Ambassador Fatmi, I'll start with you. Put this whole line of control episode in context. It's not the first time this has happened. How big of an event was it really? Ambassador Fatmi, can you hear me? Okay, I think Ambassador Fatmi cannot hear me right now. So, Mr. Markey, I'll ask you the same question. How big of an event was this whole episode?
Well, I think I wouldn't want to blow it out of proportion. The violations of the line of control between India and Pakistan have taken place fairly regularly over the past couple of years, but nothing has spiraled to this level of rhetoric between the two capitals, and so that's what's different. I think it's an unfortunate thing, but I hope, and I think there are good reasons to believe that it'll be more of a hiccup in the relationship than the sign of some spiraling downward or real kind of catastrophic turn of events.
And was there concern in Washington?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Was there concern in Washington over what was going on?
Oh, yes.
And how much? Can you describe what the mood in Washington was?
Yeah, I think there's some degree of concern. I think that Washington has actually been pretty pleased, all things considered, with the direction that India and Pakistan have taken over the past several years in their relationship. Certainly, things had improved quite a great deal relative to, say, the period after the Mumbai terrorist attacks, or certainly earlier in the last decade. So the United States was pleased that India and Pakistan seemed to be coming together in ways that, frankly, the United States and Pakistan were not. And so, yes, there's been concern over the past week or so with this deterioration along the line of control, but I think at least some confidence that cooler heads would prevail, and that it was only a matter of making sure that sort of the political leadership on both sides reasserted some control over what appears now, hopefully, to have been kind of a ground level conflict, something between officers and men, soldiers on the line of control, but not something that necessarily reflected a deeper deterioration in the relationship.
Thank you, Ambassador Fatmi. Hopefully you can hear me now, so let me come back to you. Putting this in context, as Mr. Marquis said, this has happened before, not the first time. What was it this time that this got all the way to the DGMO level?
Well, I was not connected when the other gentleman was speaking, but my personal view is that from all the evidence that has so far come out, that this was actually an event or an incident that was triggered at the very local level and then escalated with deaths and injuries taking place. With the result that the media got into the act, the political parties got into the act, the service chief and the Prime Minister in India got into it, and one started fearing that all the efforts and all the time spent over the last few years in trying to cool down the temperature and to resurrect the normalization process, one was fearing that it may be derailed. Happily, it appears that both sides have taken a decision to cool things down, and the meeting yesterday that took place between the DGs, military operations, appears to have resulted in a kind of decision that unless specific steps were taken in, things could get out of hand. And I think this is a good decision, and now it's important for the political leadership from both sides to assert their role in ensuring that A, that such incidents are not repeated, and more importantly, in refraining from statements or remarks that only further exacerbate a difficult situation. I think the relations between the two countries have definitely
on the right track. And Ambassador Fatmi, this thing that you said, Ambassador Fatmi, about not making statement leads me to my second question, which I want to ask Mr. Markey, which is, how would you gauge the reaction of the two countries, both India and Pakistan, this time compared to the last times? But also, does it show a level of development or maturity in the relationship that there were tensions, there was opposition pressure, there was media pressure, and yet the safety valves kind of worked? The tensions eased?
Yeah, I think that some of the rhetoric has gone beyond, of course, where Washington is especially comfortable. Words like warmongering from the Pakistani side, the Indian Prime Minister's ratcheting up of pressure, some of the comments from Indian military. All of these lead to some concern here. But then again, I think you're basically right. Things had gotten worse before. Pakistan and India have been on more of a hair trigger type of relationship in the not so distant past. If it doesn't show maturity, at least it shows a sign that both sides recognize the very high stakes that they face. And particularly in India, they recognize that their options, that is, their military options, are not especially good when it comes to Pakistan. So they want to push back. They want to push back hard to make it clear to the Pakistani side that they won't suffer this sort of behavior. And both sides, I think, feel that way, that they need to show their strength at the outset. But both sides also recognize that they don't want this to get out of control. And I think that's what we've seen so far.
Ambassador Fatmi, since you've been involved in this kind of thing, I want to ask you particularly, what was going on the Pakistani side? I mean, there was a lot of things going on internally in Pakistan. The government was busy dealing with a long march, and the opposition was scrambling to figure out what to do. And on top of this, the border skirmishes. So what was the reaction in the foreign ministry, and what was the army thinking at this time?
Well, I can tell you what my former colleagues in the foreign ministry were feeling, a large number of retired officers were feeling. I have to point out here that unlike India, there was no statement at the level of the president or the prime minister, and the foreign minister's own remarks were far more conciliatory from New York, where she was based. There's been no statement at senior levels from the armed forces either, no talk of choosing a time and place back or that the relations are not going to recover. So I frankly think that even though I would fault the government for 1,000,001 things, including corruption, inefficiency, lack of governance and all that, but I think this is an evidence of a maturity from the civilian leaderships that had not been seen in the past, and also a recognition on the part of the military leadership that they have enough problems with the Afghanistan thing, with the domestic situation, to see the border with India, being inflamed at this time. Also, unlike India, no opposition party, and definitely not the main opposition party of Muslim League, Mr. Nawaz Sharif, or any engaged in such rhetoric. So I think overall, I would say, in all honesty, that the Pakistanis did appear to be caught by surprise, but manner in which things started getting out of hand, and be a sincere desire to see the whole thing being snuffed out very quickly, lest things get out of hand.
Thank you. And Mr. Markey, I want you to comment on what Ambassador Fatmi just said. Was it because Pakistan's opposition parties, and we're not just talking about PMLN and Mr. Nawaz Sharif, we're also talking about the more hardline parties. We didn't even see the religious parties come out as in a hardline position that we usually do. Was it because of the internal situation of Pakistan, or do you think there's a consensus that has developed in Pakistan that only talks are the way to go forward with India?
Look, I wouldn't want to read too much into the relatively conciliatory behavior of the Pakistanis in this particular crisis. I do think that there are still some fairly hardline Pakistani political parties who are by no means reconciled to the status quo with India, and under certain circumstances would go and bang the drums of war if they could. But I would say that Pakistan is preoccupied. There's a lot going on, as you know, in Islamabad and elsewhere inside of Pakistan. Many of its politicians are more focused on those internal developments than they are on this event along the Indian border, and would probably prefer to keep the action directed toward the internal politics, since they themselves don't really control what the Pakistani army is doing along that border, and are more reactive, and perhaps, as Ambassador Fatemi said, perhaps are also somewhat taken by surprise by this. If I could just make one point about the Indian response, I think there was at least some concern in New Delhi that perhaps Pakistan was intentionally probing and was pushing the envelope along the border in a military way to test what India's response will be. And I think that's in part why you've seen such a senior level pushback inside of India. They want to make it very clear that their response will be very firm. I think some of that is politically driven. I think some of that is also a strategic calculation that even though they don't want to go to war with Pakistan, they don't want to also give an inch lest that be taken and Pakistani side push for more.
So let's go forward from here. We've seen in the past relationships getting better. Again, relationships are getting better, and despite this one incident, they seem to be getting better back on track. One fear amongst analysts and even amongst common people in both India and Pakistan is if something big happens, like Mumbai happened last time, it will all derail again. Do you see anything different this time going forward? I'll start with you, Ambassador Fatemi, then come to you, Mr. Markey.
Well, one can only hope and pray that, all things like Bombay do not take place. No one in Pakistan in his senses would ever want it to take place. I also think that a large number of Pakistanis do recognize that such an incident would definitely impact very negatively on relations between Pakistan and India. At the same time, I want to point out that so much has taken place in the context of confidence-building measures, not only by the governments, but by the media, by the think tanks.
Okay, it seems like we've lost Ambassador Fatemi. For now, we'll get back to him. But Mr. Markey, do you see anything different this time going forward?
Yeah, I'd say a couple of things. First of all, on the positive side of the ledger, the fact that both sides have re-engaged in a diplomatic dialogue is an important way, at least a process, that both sides can try to maintain. And in the midst of another crisis, say one that's much more dramatic than what we've seen over the past week, the Indian side, suppose that they got hit with another terrorist attack, they could shut down that dialogue. They could engage with the United Nations and through other means, all diplomatic efforts that would allow them to act and push off domestic pressure to do more in the way of taking a military step that would probably be detrimental to the Indian interest as well as the Pakistani interest. So that's positive. Other developments of late would include the fact that India apparently has developed a capacity to take more punitive military actions. People are calling it a cold start doctrine and so on. I think it's still relatively nascent, very limited capacity. But in response to that, the Pakistanis have themselves developed tactical nuclear response capability. When you put those things together, what it suggests is that the stakes have gotten even higher, that in the midst of a crisis, both sides might be pushed to act even more rapidly. And this is very much on the negative side of the ledger, that both sides feel that they may have incentives for rapid military action, for escalation sooner rather than later. And that's the kind of thing that makes people here in Washington quite worried and ratchets up the attention level that everyone here gives to any kind of crisis, whether it's a relatively small one like the one we're seeing or something much larger like another Mumbai type event.
Okay, Ambassador Fatmi, welcome back. I want to ask you, something else is going to happen in the near future that might have an impact on India-Pakistan relationship, and that's the 2014 pullout from Afghanistan of the Western forces, or at least a majority of the forces. This new peace plan that's coming forward in Afghanistan puts Pakistan in a driving seat. U.S. is kind of sitting in the back seat just watching. Is India, you think, nervous, and do you think that might have an impact between Pakistan and India? Are we looking at a proxy war, in other words?
I don't think so. Even though I remain very worried about Afghanistan in the coming months and years, I am not at all confident that things will move smoothly. I'm not confident about the ability of the Afghan National Army or the political leadership. All those worries are very much there. But I think that there is a growing recognition in Pakistan as well, driven by civic society, driven by the media, driven by the think tanks, that we have tried all these other things. Now let us give a serious and honest try to promoting the reconciliation process in Afghanistan, letting Afghanistan choose its own destiny. And you would recall that the media had carried reports to the effect that a couple of weeks ago the armed forces had given expression to a new thinking, what they call a new doctrine, which is a radical departure from what the armed forces had so far, in which, India had always figured as the most important threat. And now there is recognition that should have been given years ago to the primacy, to the priority to internal problems, especially from terrorism and extremism. So these are all evidence of a growing maturity and a growing wisdom on the part of both the armed forces and people at large. And I want to make one point with that Daniel made. It is not true that there are some political parties in Pakistan that is raring to go after India. I am not aware of any single major political party that is advocating a jihad against India or wants to liberate Kashmir. In fact, all the seminars and meetings that have taken place in Track 2 and Track 3, people have advocated going far beyond what the government has so far done with regard to India. But one last point, if I have your permission, there is still the very lurking fear that unless there is a suitable response from India on the normalization track, on issues besides terrorism and trade, the peace process will remain a very fragile engagement.
What do you mean by issues other than terrorism and trade? Can you tell us what's at the top of that list?
Well, there was this composite dialogue process. The process as a formality, as a formal framework is no longer there, but still there are issues that are of greater importance to India and there are issues that are of greater importance to Pakistan. Now, definitely there has been progress, and as I said, progress on visas, immigration, trade, terrorism consultations. These are all priority issues for India. But for years, both sides have described things like Siachen and Sir Creek as low-hanging fruits that should be easily achievable. And now suddenly one realizes that there is unexpected rigidity from the Indian side. There is rigidity as far as discussing CBMs on nuclear and conventional weapons. The meetings in December between experts on the two sides was inconclusive, and the Pakistani delegation returned very disappointed. Now, all those are developments that are not going to be helpful in promoting the normalization process.
Mr. Markey, do you agree that India has kind of, blocking is a very strong word, I don't want to use it, but extremely overcautious, should we say?
Well, let's just say I'll speak from a Washington perspective. I think here in Washington, we would be happy to see India move ahead, particularly on some of the areas that the ambassador mentioned, Siachen, Sir Creek, and so on, because we agree broadly that these are symptoms of a broader relationship problem, but symptoms that could be managed more effectively than they have been over past decades. So there, I think India probably could be more forthcoming, and there is a problem within the Indian system. It appears, at least here from Washington, that the Indian military is less inclined to give a green light to these types of things than perhaps an Indian civilian government might be. And the Indian civilian government under Prime Minister Manmohan Singh is relatively weaker, more politically on edge than it might have been several years ago, and therefore somewhat more timid. On the broader set of issues, though, I would say that India is probably right to be somewhat less eager to move forward. They want to see the proof that Pakistan really has turned the kind of corner that Ambassador Fatemi has pointed out. And speaking frankly, here in Washington, I think we'd like to see some proof of that as well. The rhetoric is very encouraging. We should encourage it, and we welcome it. But the absolute evidence is less clear. And the specific example I would use, going back to your questions about Afghanistan, is that yes, Pakistan clearly recognizes that the threat of internal terrorism, the Pakistani Taliban, the TTP, and so on, is very real and is killing Pakistanis and needs to be met with force by the Pakistani military. But Pakistan's position with respect to Afghan Taliban, with respect to the Haqqani network, the Quetta Shura, the Afghan Taliban leadership that was in place in Afghanistan prior to 2001, if anything, is marked more by continuity than by change. That is, Pakistan still sees these individuals, these groups, as essential parts of the Afghan political setup. They have to be included in a future reconciliation process. This looks like continuity to me. It looks like continuity to many in India as well. And to come back to your initial question, that leads some Indians to be very concerned that what we're seeing in 2013 looks all too much to them like what we've seen in the 1990s and up until 2001. So yeah, there is some concern there.
So basically what I was asking and what you seem to be suggesting is that if 2014, the peace plan that seems to be out there, if that's the plan, if that's in the works, could it jeopardize future peace between India and Pakistan? Or
I think it could. I think that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it definitely could. I think that India will see certain versions of a reconciliation after 2014, particularly any that give a very strong hand to the Afghan Taliban leadership, people like Mullah Omar and so on. India will see that as an opening for a reversion in Afghanistan to something that they found very dangerous in the past. This is not necessarily the case. You can imagine a situation where the Taliban really do retreat to a kind of a politics, normal politics, peaceful politics, unarmed politics, or less militant politics. But we haven't seen evidence of that yet. And I think it's reasonable for Indians to be concerned that that's not what we're going to see after 2014. And it's reasonable for Pakistanis as well. And I heard this from the foreign minister of Pakistan, for them to be concerned about the militancy and the potential rise of militancy in Afghanistan. I think many Pakistanis actually do recognize that will be dangerous to them as well. And they would like to see a real shift in Pakistan with respect to even to groups like the Haqqani network. But we haven't seen it yet. And that's what we're waiting to see here and hopeful that Pakistan really is turning that corner.
Ambassador Fatemi, I don't know how aware you are or if you've talked to people about the Afghanistan peace plan that's out there, but as I mentioned, that puts Pakistan in the driving seat. By some accounts, it gives the Taliban the south and the east. And what is Pakistan doing to make sure that if that plan is in the works, India's concerns are also addressed so that the peace process between these two nuclear-armed neighbors is not jeopardized?
Your question assumes that Pakistan is actually in a position where it can influence the Taliban to the degree that people think it can. I think that is highly exaggerated. Having dealt with at least some senior Taliban leaders in the late 90s, I can tell you that very few people genuinely have any influence on them. But that's not really important. What is important is the growing consensus in Pakistan on A, the peace process with India, and B, on the fact that militancy and extremism has harmed Pakistan both domestically and externally, and 3, on the need to pursue a policy vis-a-vis Afghanistan that promotes Afghan independence while not hurting Pakistan's relations with Afghanistan. Now, these to me are positive developments. As I stated, there are very few things in Pakistan on which the political parties and the civic society appear to agree. But they definitely do agree on the need for better relations with India, on the need for promoting a genuine peace in Afghanistan. And I think that one should accept that at face value and not try to have misgivings and doubts just because of past history. If one were to go to into history, there would be no end to these kinds of misgivings.
But Ambassador Fatmi, I understand. Ambassador Fatmi, just to add to your question.
What happens to Afghanistan post-withdrawal of foreign troops?
Ambassador Fatmi, just to add to your...
Yes, please.
Ambassador Fatmi, just to ask you again, you say that one should take it at face value and not be too concerned about history. But we've seen time and again, not once, but more than once, that Pakistan and India have come very close to significant development in peace process. The last time was during President General Musharraf's time, and then Mumbai happened, which some in India blame elements in Pakistan, not necessarily the establishment, but elements coming from Pakistan. So why should people not be concerned that something similar may happen again?
No, you are right. Of course, there is a history, and if you were to base that, then of course you should not do anything, not take any initiative, and just continue sitting in a state of frozen animation. A, General Musharraf was a military dictator. He did not enjoy domestic acceptance. B, his policy did not enjoy political support. And C, there was a genuine belief that General Musharraf, in order to make up for the sins of Kargil, was bending back much too much and acceding to Indian requests on a wide front, which have led to considerable criticism. I think this government is very fortunate in that the main opposition party is supportive of it, and there is a general awareness amongst the people of Pakistan that those policies are failed policies and there should be genuine peace with India. But I wish to add once again, and I don't want to sound Cassandra-like, that unless this peace process also recognizes some of Pakistan's concerns, this fragile plant could start withering very soon.
Thank you very much. Mr. Markey, what Ambassador Fatmi said, some in Pakistan complain that India is more willing to deal with military dictators in Pakistan than with the civilian government, which has the public's backing and can actually make a lasting peace agreement. What would you say to his points that India is not being as encouraging as Pakistan in this process?
Well, I've heard that many times, and I disagree with the idea that India would prefer to deal with a Pakistani military dictator. I think Ambassador Fatmi is right that actually the two major political parties in Pakistan are quite comfortable talking with the Indian side, actually have pretty good relations with the Indian political leadership. And that it's often been the military that on both sides that's dragged them back from better relationships. So I agree with that point. But I would say that India was willing to pursue the relationship with President Musharraf, even though they had a past history of bad relations, because he seemed genuinely willing to push it forward. And the
so you're
problem
saying that the same
since
thing might
2008
apply.
is that
Yes, I'm sorry I have
well,
to
India would be happy to pursue it now.
I'm sorry I have to interrupt you here because we're running out of time, but thank you so much to both our guests. We were joined by Daniel Markey of CFR, a South Asia Fellow, and Ambassador Tariq Fatmi joined us from Pakistan. He's a former ambassador, also a foreign policy expert and advisor, and I'm Aisha Tanzim. You were watching Access Point. Leave your opinion, comments, suggestions about this show on our Facebook page, facebook.com/accesspoint with AT. Goodbye.